Alright, so we are going to discuss how to compose two functions. So the composition of functions is kind of like evaluating functions. Evaluating functions was when you had like a function and it said find f of 2, right? All you did was you plugged in 2 any place you saw an x. So this became f of 2 equals 3 times 2 minus 1, and then you just solved 6 minus 1 equals 5. So basically you took what they asked you to find, which was f of 2, you plugged in a 2 for every x that you saw, and then you just simplified until you got your answer, which f of 2 equals 5 would be your answer for this function. Composition of functions is pretty similar to this, except instead of seeing find f of 3 or find f of some number, what you're going to see is a thing like this. It'll say f of g of x, and this reads the same, f of g of x. So these two things, it's like you're evaluating a function, but instead of plugging in a number, you're plugging in another function, okay? So this is, when you see this, these two things mean composition of functions. They mean the exact same thing, they just look different, but they mean the exact same thing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put up some examples of different ways to compose two functions, and hopefully give you a better idea of what this actually means. Alright, so for these examples, I'm going to use the functions f of x equals 3x plus 2, and then g of x equals x minus 4. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find f of g of x. Okay? So the first thing we do is we look at how this is written, because order is important. Order matters here. So f is the first thing, so that means I'm using this function to start out with. So I'm going to write down that function, f of x equals 3x plus 2. F came first, so I wrote it down. Then I look at the second piece, this inside these parentheses, g of x. G of x is what's inside. So just like when you evaluated and you had to plug in a number to x, we're going to plug in that function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in g of x wherever I see x. Okay, and I'm going to write it in blue. So I have f of g of x equals 3. Now instead of x, I need to write down what g of x is. G of x is x minus 4. So I have 3 times x minus 4 plus 2. Okay, so one more time, just going to explain it. F of g of x means that wherever I see x in the function, I'm going to plug in g of x. So instead of x, I have g of x. And instead of x here, I have what g of x actually is, which is x minus 4. Okay? So both of these things are in the right places. Okay. So from here, we're not really solving, we're just kind of simplifying. To simplify this, I need to distribute the 3 inside these parentheses. So I have 3x minus 12, and then I have this plus 2 still out on the end. Then all I can do here is combine these like terms, this negative 2 and this plus 2. So I have f of g of x equals 3x minus 10. That's as far as I can go. I don't have any other like terms to combine or things to simplify. So that's where I'm left with, or what I'm left with. F of g of x equals 3x minus 10. Okay. We're going to go ahead and switch the order around Next, we're going to find g of f of x. So g of f of x, again, order matters, so as I read this, I know g comes first, so I'm going to write down this g function. G of x equals x minus 4. Now what's inside is f of x, so wherever I see an x, that's what I'm plugging in. So I have g of f of x equals, f of x is 3x plus 2, and I still have to remember that this minus 4 still goes on the outside. Okay, all I can do from here is combine these like terms, and I have g of f of x equals 3x minus 2. That's as far as I can go. I don't have any other like terms or things I can simplify, so this is what I have. G of f of x equals 3x minus 2. Now remember, this can also be written as g of f of x equals 3x minus 2. These are equivalent, so this is the same as that. One more thing I'm going to show you is when you compose a function with itself. So instead of plugging in another function, you just plug in that same function. So we're going to find f of x. Again, order still matters, even though they're the same letter. You're still looking at what you have. F is first, so f of x equals 3x plus 2. Notice there is not a single g in here, so for right now, this g function doesn't exist because there's no g inside these parentheses. We're just dealing with f. So what I'm going to do is look at the second letter, which of course is f, and wherever I see an x, that's what I'm going to plug in. So I have f of x equals 3 times 3x plus 2 plus 2. This is 3x plus 2, except instead of x, we have f of x. So that's what we plugged in. So now, just like all the other problems, I'm going to simplify. I have f of x equals 9x plus 6, and this plus 2 on the outside. I'm going to combine these like terms. F of x equals 9x plus 8. That's as far as I can go. I don't have any other like terms or things I can simplify, so this is my solution. Okay, that is how you compose two different functions.